They had a plan, not a complicated plan, the kind that to girls from a small town make at 19 when they look at the world and understand that the world is not going to come to them and they are going to have to go to it. Find rich men, marry them, never worry about money again. Simple. They had executed the plan with the specific efficiency of people who understood that execution was everything. Natalie had married first, a property developer, 61 years old, very rich. Very pleased to have married someone 30 years younger, who smiled at him the way Natalie smiled at men who had what she needed. Sophia had married second, a banker, 54 years old, significant assets, the particular loneliness of someone who had spent 30 years building wealth and had arrived at the top and found it quiet. They had the plan. They were living the plan. Then on a Monday morning, James Whitfield walked into the room, 41 years old. CEO of Whitfield Capital, the kind of cold that was not rudeness, but precision, the specific chill of someone who saw everything and said only what was necessary. He looked at the room. He looked at Natalie. He looked at Sophia. And he said, to no one in particular, but everyone understood he meant it specifically, I know what this is. Natalie smiled. Sophia looked at her hands, and that was the difference between them. Their names were Sophia Reyes and Natalie Chen. They had been best friends since they were 11 years old, since the first day of secondary school when they had been seated alphabetically and had found themselves at adjacent desks and had discovered, within 40 minutes, that they were the same kind of person in different ways. Natalie was strategic. She understood the world as a system, a set of rules that could be learned and played, a game that rewarded the people who understood the rules well enough to use them. She was not cruel. She was not unfeeling. She was simply someone who had grown up watching her mother work 2 jobs and her father work 1, and both of them arrive home tired in the way of people who had been working hard at the wrong things and who had decided at 15 that she was going to work hard at the right things. The right things, as Natalie understood them, were people with money. Sophia was different. Not in the plan. She had agreed to the plan at 19 with the specific enthusiasm of someone who had spent her childhood in a house where the heating worked sometimes, and the worry was constant, and who wanted, more than almost anything, for the worry to stop. But in the execution, Natalie executed the plan with the focused precision of someone for whom the plan was the point. Sophia executed it with the particular discomfort of someone who had agreed to something and was not entirely sure they had agreed to the right thing. She had married David Hartley at 24. He was 54 and had significant assets and the particular loneliness of someone who had spent 30 years building and had arrived at the top and found it quiet. He was not unkind. He was not dramatically difficult. He was simply the man Sophia had married because he was rich and she had needed to stop the worry. And she had told herself that kindness was sufficient. It was not entirely sufficient. She had known this from the beginning. She had not known what to do with knowing it. He arrived on a Monday morning. A charity gala, the kind that Natalie organized with the specific efficiency of someone who understood that charity galas were the correct location for the kind of networking that produced results. Sophia attended because Natalie asked her to, and because David thought it was good for visibility, and because refusing was more complicated than going. She had been standing with Natalie near the entrance when he walked in. She had known who he was. Everyone knew who James Whitfield was. Whitfield Capital, 41. The financial press called him surgical. His board called him demanding. The people who had worked for him longest called him, with the specific respect of people who had learned from someone difficult, the most precise thinker they had encountered. He had looked at the room, the specific look of someone who was assessing rather than attending, who was present because presence was required, and was using the presence for information. He had looked at Natalie. Natalie had smiled. The particular smile she deployed for men who had what she needed, practiced and calibrated and entirely effective. He had looked at Sophia. Sophia had looked at her hands. He had said, "I know what this is." To the room. To no one. To both of them. Natalie had continued smiling. Sophia had felt something arrive in her chest that she had been managing for years. He had seen it immediately. Not Natalie specifically, not the particular plan, the specific history of two girls from a small town. He had seen the type, which was not a cruel observation, but an accurate one. The specific recognition of someone who had encountered versions of this before. Women at these events fell into categories. This was not a charitable thought, and he knew it, and he held it anyway. Because accuracy was more useful than charity. He had seen the categories. And then he had seen Sophia look at her hands. That was different. The looking at the hands was not the behavior of someone executing a plan. It was the behavior of someone who was somewhere they were not entirely sure they should be and knew it and did not know what to do with knowing it. He had filed this. He filed things. He had gone to find the host and conduct the business he had come to conduct, and had not thought about Sophia Hartley again until Tuesday morning, when his assistant had put a name on his schedule for a meeting he had not requested. David Hartley's wife, his assistant said, "She called this morning. She says she has information relevant to the Hartley account." He had looked at the name. "Send her in," he said. She came in at 2 o'clock. Not the charity gala version, no performance, no particular deployment of anything. She was 32, and she was wearing the specific clothes of someone who had decided this meeting required being taken seriously and had dressed accordingly. She sat down. She looked at him. "You said you knew what it was," she said. "Last night." "Yes," he said. "What did you mean?" He looked at her. "I meant," he said, "that I recognized a particular kind of arrangement. And I was correct about your friend," he said. "And I'm not sure I was correct about you." She looked at the table. "What's the difference?" she said. "Your friend," he said, smiled at me the way she smiles at men who have something she wants. He held her gaze. "You looked at your hands. That's a small thing," she said. "Small things," he said, "are usually the accurate things." She was quiet for a moment. "I came," she said, "because David is in financial trouble, significant trouble, and he doesn't know that I know. And Natalie," she stopped. "Natalie knows," he said. She looked at him. "Yes," she said. "How did you?" "Because Natalie," he said, "was at that gala for a reason." And the reason was not the charity. The account had been Nataly's idea. Sophia had understood this only gradually, the specific gradual understanding of someone who has been close to a person for 20 years and has been choosing not to see certain things clearly. Natalie had known about David's financial trouble for 6 months. Natalie had known because Natalie made it her business to know things, had cultivated over years of careful networking, the specific network of people who knew things about other people's money. She had known about David's exposure to a failing investment. She had known about the restructuring that was coming. She had said nothing to Sophia. She had used the information to position herself, had used connections to the property developer husband to move money, to restructure, to be in the correct position when the correction came. She's been protecting herself, James said, with information she got through you, through your marriage. Sophia looked at him. She used me, she said. She used the access your marriage provided. He said, single quotes, yes. We've been best friends for 20 years, she said. I know, he said. I'm sorry. She looked at the window. She was my best friend, she said. Not performing it, just saying it. The plain fact of 20 years arriving at this room. Yes, he said. What do I do? She said. He looked at her, at the woman who had looked at her hands at a charity gala, and had come to his office the following day with the specific honesty of someone who had decided the truth was better than the management. That, he said, depends on what you want. I don't know what I want, she said. I've been following a plan for 10 years. I don't know what I want outside the plan. What did you want? He said. At 19. Before the plan? She looked at him. To stop worrying, she said. Have you stopped? No, she said. Different worries, but no. He looked at his desk. That's honest, he said. I'm trying to be, she said. It's new. He investigated Natalie's financial movements that week. Not personally. He had people for this. The specific people who found things in numbers that other people missed. What they found was thorough and specific and built a picture that was, as pictures went, not flattering. Natalie had been using information gleaned through Sophia's marriage for 18 months. Not illegally, she had been careful, which was itself information about the person. Someone who was careful about lines was someone who knew where the lines were and had thought carefully about how close to approach them. He presented the findings to Sophia on a Thursday. She read through the documents. She was very still. She's been doing this since before David got into trouble, she said. Yes, he said. She knew it was coming, she said. She had information that suggested it was likely, he said. And she didn't tell me, Sophia said. No, he said. She let me stay in a marriage that was. She stopped. She let me stay because my staying was useful to her. Yes, he said. She looked at the documents. James, she said. Single quotes, yes. I need to ask you something, she said. Ask, he said. Why are you helping me? She said. You don't know me. I came in here with a story, and you investigated. You spent time. Why? He looked at her. He thought about a charity gala and a woman who looked at her hands. Because, he said, you came in the next morning and told me the truth. And in my experience, people who tell the truth the morning after a difficult evening are people worth the time. She looked at him. That's a small thing, she said. Small things, he said, are usually the accurate things. She recognized her own words. She almost smiled. She met Natalie on a Friday evening, not to perform. She had decided against performance, which was itself a decision she had not been capable of a week ago. She met her with the specific directness she had been practicing since Tuesday, and which was, she was discovering, both harder and cleaner than the alternative. I know about the trades, Sophia said. Natalie looked at her. The particular assessment of someone calculating options. Sophia, 18 months, Sophia said. You've been using information from my marriage for 18 months. You knew about David's trouble before I did. You said nothing. I was protecting myself, Natalie said. I know, Sophia said. That's what you do. I've known that for 20 years and I chose not to see it clearly. We had a plan. You had a plan, Sophia said. I had a hope. There's a difference. Natalie looked at her. What are you going to do? She said. I'm going to do what I should have done years ago, Sophia said. I'm going to figure out what I actually want. And James Whitfield, Natalie said, with the specific precision of someone who had been paying attention, is someone who showed me that small things are accurate, Sophia said. She left. She did not look back. He called her on a Saturday. Not for professional reasons. The professional reasons had concluded. He called because he had been sitting in his apartment on a Saturday morning, which was unusual for him, which was in itself information, and had been thinking about someone who had spent 10 years following a plan and had arrived at his office and said, I don't know what I want outside the plan. Sophia, he said, single quotes, yes. I want to tell you something, he said. That I should probably not tell you because it's not relevant to any professional matter. Tell me, she said. I have been, he said, for 4 years, the specific kind of person that my board calls effective and my sister calls impossible to be around. I have been precise and I have been cold and I have made a considerable amount of money and I have not, in 4 years, sat in my apartment on a Saturday morning thinking about someone. She was quiet. I'm sitting in my apartment, he said. On a Saturday morning, James, she said. Yes, I looked at my hands at that gala, she said, because I was standing next to my best friend who was performing, and I realized I didn't want to perform anymore. She paused. I just didn't know what not performing looked like. What does it look like? He said. I think, she said, it looks like calling someone on a Saturday morning to tell them something that isn't professionally relevant. He was quiet for a moment. Can I take you to dinner? He said. Yes, she said, but not somewhere with a charity gala. Somewhere small, he said. Yes, she said, somewhere where the small things are accurate. She had left David. Not dramatically. There had been lawyers and arrangements and the specific care of 2 people who had been kind to each other in a marriage that had not been what either of them needed, and who had decided to be kind to each other in the leaving. David had been, she thought, relieved. They had been kind to each other in the wrong way for too long. The financial trouble had been managed. James had not been responsible for this. She had been clear about that with herself. But the restructuring he had advised had produced a path through. David had taken the path. He was smaller now, more particular. He seemed, she thought, like someone who had been let out of something. So did she. Natalie had left. Not dramatically either. Natalie's exits were never dramatic, which was itself the thing about Natalie that Sophia had spent 20 years misreading as loyalty, and was actually efficiency. Natalie had moved on to the next thing with the specific smoothness of someone who had been ready for this contingency. Sophia had been surprised to find that she did not miss her. She had expected to miss her. She missed the 19-year-old who had sat at the adjacent desk and made her laugh for the first time at a new school. She did not miss who Natalie had become. Perhaps Natalie had been becoming that person for a long time. Perhaps Sophia had been choosing not to see it. She was choosing to see things clearly now. James was not easy. She had not expected easy, and easy was not what she wanted. He was precise and demanding, and had opinions about things that he stated directly, and expected her to either agree with or argue against, both of which she found she was capable of. She was capable of more than she had known. That was, she thought, the thing the plan had cost her. Not the marriages or the money or the years. The knowledge of what she was capable of, which had been there all along and had been waiting for someone to require it. They had a plan. Find rich men. Marry them. Never worry about money again. One of them executed the plan and looked forward. One of them executed the plan and looked at her hands. That was the difference. A coal CEO walked into a room and saw the difference in 4 seconds. Here is what we learned. The plans we make at 19 to escape the worry, they are not wrong because they are mercenary. They are wrong because they assume that money is the thing that stops the worry. It isn't. The worry stops when you stop performing. When you look at your hands instead of smiling at people who have what you think you need. When you walk into a CEO's office the morning after and tell the truth even when the truth is difficult. Small things are usually the accurate things. Looking at your hands, telling the truth in the morning, not missing the person who left. These are small things. They are everything.